Hello and welcome back, listeners, to Mind Over Matter, the podcast where we uncover the tools, strategies, and stories to help you rise above life's challenges and step into your fullest potential. As always, I'm your host, Sana, and today we are diving into an empowering conversation that will transform the way you see your current circumstances. Joining us is Mark Collins, an inspiring business and life coach, author of Life Mastery Living Life by Design, Not by Default, and also the founder of Freedom for Life LLC. Listeners, with his passion for helping people unleash their inner hero or heroine, Mark has guided hundreds to break free from fear, overcome uncertainty, and design a life of impact and purpose. So, if you have ever felt stuck, uh, overwhelmed, or wondered if there's more for you in life, you are in the right place, listeners. Get ready to discover that you are more than where you are at. There's a greater plan for you. And today we are unpacking the blueprint to live it out. So let's quickly dive into this. Mark, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute pleasure having you with us today.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here.
So Mark, before we proceed to the questions, to the discussion around the topic, uh, can you share a bit about your journey? What made you realize that you need to help people understand about their life? How they can live life by the design, by not default.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Diksha. I think for me, my journey started with my own need for transformation or belief in myself and knowing that I was greater than whatever my current circumstance was, or, for me, the current vocation or life that I was living. And, it came from just this inner belief that there was more than the life I was living. And I really was passionate about trying to figure out how to bring that man out in my business or job and my relationships in life. And in being able to find it for myself, like with you, I'm sure, and anybody else, that when we find things that we think are amazing or transformational, we want to share it. And so for me, it started casually with conversations and ideas and little workshops that I would teach. And then when I started to see that there was, a hunger out there for people to have more than their current circumstance, whether it's financially or relationally or vocationally, that I wanted to create a system. And for me, it started with the course Life Mastery. And then I wrote the book that you spoke about in the introduction, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design.
No, wow, that's inspiring. So, yeah, in your book, Life Mastery, you talk about unleashing the hero within. What does that process look like, Mark, and why is it so important for someone to recognize their own hero or heroine potential?
I think it's a great question. For me, I think innately inside, we all believe that there's more than where we're at. We all believe that there's an impact that we're supposed to have. Sometimes we forget it because we get caught up in the day to day, which is where the title of my book came from, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, not by default. But a lot of times we're in a bit of a default mode and just doing what everybody else is doing, trying to find success in the ways everybody else says you're supposed to,
Right.
and just managing, fear or imposter syndrome, all those things that are standing in the way, which were fear, failure, and imposter syndrome were two that I had to overcome in my life. But so I think there's just this supposition that says, from that standpoint, that there is a hero on the inside of you, that you're more than this current circumstance. You're more than, even if you're successful. I work with people who are vastly successful, but it doesn't mean that they're joyful, they're happy, or they have peace. And so it's really saying that there's more on the inside of you, that you are right, that there is a greater life than what you're living. And in that place, hopefully there's a hope that, what I call the work that I'm doing is providing the blueprint for your freedom walk. And when you can find the tools and strategies to do it, you can actually unleash that person on the inside. And at the end of the day, Diksha, what I tell people is there's an impact in the world that has your name on it. And if you can find the keys to unlocking that person, the world is better simply because you're in it. And I think that's something everybody wants to have as the goal for their life.
Definitely. Definitely. That's really interesting, Mark. Okay, so uh, on the flip side, some people would argue that life is unpredictable, and it cannot always be designed. So how would you respond to those who believe it's better to go with the flow rather than attempt to control or master their path?
I think that's a great question. There's a difference between mastering yourself and mastering your world. And so for me, it isn't a mastery of circumstances and the things that are around you. There's this phrase I have that I use often with people that it's this: you're the answer to the circumstance you're walking into. You're not the question to be figured out. And what I mean is that there's innately things on the inside of every person that I believe are supposed to have an impact in where they're at. So life mastery isn't me designing all my circumstances or controlling my environment, because that's really not mastery. That's more management. But in the place where you understand there's, again, that hero in hiding, that impact you're supposed to have, when I can master myself, which means I can become the person I'm created to be at the highest level I'm created for in all of these areas of my life. For me, it's the spiritual, relational, vocational, physical, and financial. So if I can master myself in those areas, which means that show up as the person I'm created to be for the impact I'm supposed to have, then the circumstances take care of themselves. You're right, Diksha. There's challenging things that happen. Life happens to everybody all the time. And sometimes it's amazing and sometimes it's challenging. But in all circumstances, the one thing you can master in those circumstances is yourself, showing up as the person you're created to be with confidence, assurance, passion, and purpose. And in that place, you'll overcome the things that you need to, and you'll have the success and the fulfillment you desire.
Absolutely. I think, that's what we can definitely control, showing up and I think composing ourselves. I think it can really, really help us navigate through the uncertainties thrown at us by life. So I think that's a great answer you gave, Mark. Also, uh, so, talking about your idea, you emphasize this idea that you are more than where you are at. That's what we are discussing. So how can people begin to embrace this mindset, especially when life feels challenging or maybe stagnant?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the point in that topic and that title is helping people to understand that, to be frank, even if you're in an amazing place, even if you're, and I would say this as a phrase in the United States, if you're hitting on all cylinders, if all things are going well in all areas of your life, there's still more for you. What I believe is that there's the life mastery level of life that you're created for, right? So while you could be a person who's working in a factory, maybe you're meant to own one. Or if you're in a relationship where you have friends and family around you, maybe you're meant for long-term marriage with, children and grandchildren. Whatever the thing is that is yours, there's an idea and understanding that life mastery is a journey, but it's always a journey upward towards the goal of everything that you're desiring. Because I believe at the end of the day, fulfillment isn't me succeeding at something. It's me believing I'm living the life that I'm created for. That, I'm sure you felt it in your life, and I have in mine as well. Those activities or those things you're doing where you just are just all in, that you can't be distracted. You don't want to be pulled away. You forget what time it is. You maybe miss meals because you're just all in on creating this thing or doing this activity. And in that place, you start to understand that this is exactly who you're created to be. That's what life mastery looks like. And so, for whatever stage and age and area that you're at, maybe there's more than wherever you're at. And especially for those folks, Diksha, who are maybe frustrated where they're at. Maybe they're, like you said, stagnant. They feel like life's not moving ahead and I'm not really getting things done. It's when you start with the understanding that there's more than where you're at, then you start to understand how to unpack it. And if I can briefly say how you do that, with me and the people I work with, it is pulling away from the activities that you're doing and looking towards a goal of a job or a business or an income level, and starting to say, okay, well, who am I created to be? The key to unlocking where you're at and unleashing you into the future that you're created for is starting to understand who you're created to be, not what your outcomes are. A lot of people think I am what my title is, my role, and my income level. And what I tell them is you have value and worth before you accomplish anything, not because you accomplish anything. And in that place, when you start to see a truer picture of who you are, you'll start to understand more completely and clearly what your next step is to get out of that stagnant place you're in.
Hmm. I agree. I agree with you. Okay. So, for someone who is feeling stuck or overwhelmed by fear or uncertainty, what's the first step you can suggest they can take to start breaking free and keep moving toward their purpose?
That's a great question. Thank you. The first step for everybody is always what our first task, which is to create an I am statement. And I tell people, I'll tell you the first two words, the rest is on you. The first two words are I am. And what it is a statement of identity. Who are you created to be? And two things it's not the thing we talked about previously, your outcomes, your income, title, your role, right? The things you've accomplished, you're not those things. Although they may be amazing and some things you should be very proud of, but they are a horrible identity statement because if I don't have those things, that means I am nobody. And so in that place, you set aside your accomplishments, but what you also set aside is your past. I tell people this, you're either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. And we all, Diksha and Mark and everybody else listening to this has had a life that's told them something, whether it's experiences you've walked through, tragedies you faced, challenges that you've had to overcome, or disappointments, failures, successes, joyful times, and all of the things in between. So you set aside your accomplishments, you set aside your experiences, your past, what your life has told you, and the person looking back in the mirror, I say, is who you are. And so for me, an or an I am statement, which is your identity statement, would be something like I am a person of character and worth. I'm a man of passion and integrity. I'm a person who is all in on those activities that I believe I'm created for. I'm compassionate and caring for those in need. I'm loving and encouraging for the people that I'm in relationship with. So that would be an example of an I am statement. So the first thing to get unstuck is to have a correct vision of who you are, because when you know who you are, you'll know the path you're supposed to take. So in that place, it's not my accomplishments, it's not my past, it's the person that has value and worth looking back in the mirror.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely, 500% agree with this, about when you mentioned that, yes, one can be proud about what they have achieved, the title, the roles, the accomplishments. But what if they're stripped away suddenly? Then who exactly that person is? So, very, very
Yeah.
important essential aspect of understanding, the statement you are more than where you are at is having that I am statement. Great, great,
And
Mark.
the interesting thing, Diksha, if I could add to that, it's
Mhm.
not in those places where great accomplishments are taken away. The other part that I've seen in my life in the past, and I see with people that I work with, is when you get to that level of success, whether you have the title, the job, the role, the income level, whatever the thing is that you're going for, you reach that mountaintop, as I call it, and you find out you're no happier than you were in the beginning. I work with a lot of people who are successful, and they thought, like I did, I was successful in business, and I thought when I got to a successful level, fear of failure and imposter syndrome would go away. I would feel confident all the time. I would have no worries. And that didn't happen. They actually just came along for the ride. So in that place, success is a bad indicator of identity. And I tell people this, you can't success away fear. But what you can do is to start to unpack it and understand what's going on here. And when you start to unpack identity, understanding who you are, then success isn't a relief because, okay, I'm glad I didn't fail this time, but it's a great joy and a great passion and something that's fulfilling because it's you being lived out, not something you're trying to use to prove who you are.
True. Beautiful, beautiful, Mark. Also, what role does transformational instruction play in equipping people to not just believe in a greater plan, but actually live it out?
Yeah, I think it's everything. I tell people that I created a transformational course in life mastery because I couldn't find one. And the thing that drove me to really create it and craft it as a system for other people was knowing where they were at. that because I had been that person that was in that place of desperation that had tried courses and books and gurus and coaches and people telling you their strategies. And I find that it brought me habit and change. It didn't bring transformation. So it was something I had to, like that hamster on the wheel, you had to perpetually, continually do it in order to achieve any level of success. And so in that place, I was that guy that was desperate, that knew there was more, and but everything I tried didn't work. And you have the question, is this just the life I'm supposed to live? I have to deal with fear and, whenever I try and achieve something, have imposter syndrome come in and I have to fight it off, right? So I was that person. And so I created a system because I knew that there was the path that I took to get there. And I wanted to make something that was simple and straightforward for other people to do. So you can stumble along on your own journey. And certainly I did with, trying to use success to overcome it and try and use, coaches, gurus, and coaching programs to try and do it. Or you can take a proven path that works. And so it is absolutely, imperative if you want to have the quickest way to the best life to use a strategy from somebody who's actually done it and one that really encompasses not bringing additional habits, because habits are really just another word for exhaustion. The habit you use to get there is a habit you have to use to stay there. And being a person of faith and having a spiritual walk, I believe that there's a transformation that you're invited into, not to become somebody different, not to say that you're not good enough, but to really unpack and unleash the person you're created to be. That hero inside isn't somebody different that you're pretending to be until you become it, right? What is it? You pretend until you actually make it come to pass. It's not that. It's not affirmations in general. What it is discovering who you are. And in that place, you have what I call effortless excellence.
Effortless excellence. Wow, sounds interesting. Also, Mark, before we wrap up, so critics might say that focusing on a greater plan, it can lead people to overlook the value of being present in their current circumstances. So, how do you balance the importance of mindfulness with the pursuit of life mastery?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there's a counterpoint to that. And that is that if I don't know, again, the structure of what we do is help you understand who you're created to be identity. If I don't know who I am, my world has to make up the difference, which means that if the mindfulness is mindfulness on what? On my current circumstances, on watering down my dreams and goals so that I'm satisfied where I'm at, or in trying to use somebody else's imitation of what success is supposed to look like for me. When you start to understand and unpack our identity and who you're created to be, when you start to live a life mastery life, I tell people this, it's the easiest life possible because I can't fail being me. And I don't have to muster up, courage and energy and, demonstrating with, amazing, bold moves. I don't have to do things outwardly to prove who I am when I'm living from who I am. But when I don't know who I am, when I don't know my identity, then I do have to do those things. I have to encourage myself to show up. I have to use positive language to, empower myself. I have to use demonstrative actions and, big moves and all of these things. I have to put effort into showing up. But I never have to do that. For this conversation, I just turn on the mic, turn on the lights and camera, and had a conversation because I don't have to. I don't have to fake it till I make it, because I already know who I am. So I just get to live it.
Hmm. Also, Mark, in your coaching experience, what's one of the most common barriers people face when trying to redesign their lives, and how do you guide them through it?
That's a great question. We have a 3-step transformational strategy, and the first one is the biggest one. That's a barrier for everybody, not just the people I coach, but everybody I've ever met. And it's your thoughts. And what I tell people is who you think you are, you become. And it's, we can look at the scientific proof behind it. We can look at spiritual texts too that talk about it. But at the end of the day, you'll never be greater than you think you're going to be. And so what I tell the people I work with, the first transformational strategy we use is mastering your thoughts. It's aligning your thoughts with who you're created to be, with your identity, so you can live that out, which is why we talk about life mastery being who you're created to be at the highest level you're created for. when I begin to see a vision of the highest level I'm created for spiritually or financially or vocationally, right? When I can see the vision of, I believe I can be this person, I can believe I can achieve this thing, then I can align my thoughts with that. And lo and behold, start to show up as that person. So in that place, it's mastering your thoughts, but it's not using, generic affirmations. I am a person of strength. I am a person of value, or whatever the thing is that you've been using, because many times those don't work because you don't believe them. So what we do is we do use affirmations because they do work, but what we do is align those affirmations with your identity, which is that I am statement we talked about and a couple of other tools. So we align it with the truth of the vision of who you believe you are, so that it easily aligns and it easily works, which means this: I continue to remind myself of who I am, and that man starts showing up when times are stressful, when things are happening, when challenges come up. The first thing in my response isn't fear or anxiety or worry. It's confidence and assurance, because I know who I am. And I know that, as I said earlier in the conversation, just like with the people I work with, I tell them, you're the answer to the circumstance you're walking into. When I come in with that belief system, knowing who I am and knowing that I'm the answer, well, stress won't happen. What will happen is answers will come and solutions will happen and ideas will suddenly pop into my head to have, quick responses to the things that are coming up. So it's mastering your thoughts. Who you think you are, you'll become. If you want to change where you're at, your circumstances, if you want to change that stagnancy you talked about, or want to achieve higher things in your life, I would say this: what are you thinking about you? And how can you change that to align with who you believe you are and the life you believe you're supposed to have?
Mm, great, great, Mark. Thank you so much for the details. And if our listeners they wish to connect with you and understand more about the idea and how to embrace this mindset, you are more than where you are at. Connect with you, how they can do that.
Yeah, I try to have everything in one place. And so I have a website that is freedom-4-life.net, freedom-4-life.net. I have my course out there, Life Mastery. I also have a ebook version of my book, Life Mastery: Living Life by Design, Not by Default. So you can have it on any device that you carry anywhere you go. And if you wanted to reach out to me directly, had questions about life mastery, you can reach me at Mark, M-A-R-K, at freedom-4-life.net.
Great, great. We'll have all the details mentioned in the show notes for our listeners. And Mark, thank you so much for this inspiring conversation, and for reminding us that our present circumstances, they don't define us. There is definitely a greater plan waiting to be embraced. And I think by stepping into the transformational instruction, as you explained, and designing a life with intention, we can truly master our destiny. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Diksha. It's been an awesome conversation. I appreciate it.
Great, great. And listeners, if Mark's insights resonated with you, don't forget to check out his book, Life Mastery: Living Life by Design, Not by Default, or dive into his Life Mastery online courses. You'll find links and more resources in the show notes along with this episode. And until next time, remember that your mind is your greatest ally. And with the right mindset, there is no limit to what you can achieve. This is your host, signing off from Mind Over Matter. Stay mindful and stay empowered. Thank you.